Ashraf Garda on SAFM.
Right, let's talk something that's really fascinating around political parties, all the major political parties in this country, and who should be doing what around the push to get votes for the 2019 election. So, Willy Seyama is with me, the founder of Initiate. Willy, good chatting to you as always. Hi.
Hi, Ashraf. It's good to be on your show again, and good morning to your listeners.
Thank you. Now, you have a particular thrust. Political parties should incorporate employed media for the election campaigns. What exactly do you mean?
Absolutely. Let's start by just giving a quick background. Elections are about numbers. Mm-hmm. If you can't get your voters to the ballot box, it doesn't matter much because it will not get you into parliament. And what's interesting about this is that with the fanaticism that comes with political parties in this country, and I don't think we're unique in that kind of way, you find that your card-carrying members and officials are willing to do stuff for you, to go beyond the call of duty. Those people are your employed media.
Okay.
And if you cannot use them well to make sure that you can drive the voters to the ballot box, the other parties will eat you for breakfast.
Okay, so to point of clarity, employed doesn't mean they're employees, but employed because they have a relationship.
Absolutely. Yeah. In a classic brand sense, it will be your employees.
Yeah.
But in a political party kind of a sense, it will be your card-carrying members essentially.
Okay. So you're suggesting that parties should use them a lot more than what they're using now.
Absolutely, right? and you're right by saying, they are doing stuff already for their party, saying things out there. The thing that has to happen, and we've seen it with EFF predominantly with their top three, there has to be a plan, it has to be coordinated, and there have to be guidelines at the least. And you have to be able to measure the impact of what these guys are doing on their various social networks.
So when you say these employed media, are we talking about rank and file or just the upper echelons of a party, or are you talking about both?
For better control, you could be talking about your guys in the higher echelons of the party, but there is no reason why this particular strategy can't be used with all your rank and file. And this by the way starts speaking to talking to your micro influencers. That's another way that you can put to it.
You've probably heard Yusuf Omar now saying something really interesting around their what called selfie journalism, and which is really fascinating. What happens then if a politician is actually not on social media? So here's an example: the president has a Twitter handle, but in fact is not on social media. There's no level of engagement. Many others are, right? So what happens in a case like that, where let's say of the top three parties, some of them are very present, others are like, but social media is not my thing. I'd rather go to branches.
Fortunately, though, with the change of order within the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa is on social media and he's fairly active. Not very active, but fairly active. Julius is very active as a leader of the EFF, and Musi Maiman is not doing that bad either. And with regards to the question that you're asking, we ran numbers quickly, and what we found is when we looked at the ANC NEC alone, which is about 86 members in total.
So this is the newest NEC that was elected last week.
Exactly.
So, yeah, right?
41 of them are on Twitter. Okay, when we look at the DA members of parliament, there's 87 in total. 52 of them are on Twitter. And with the EFF, interestingly, there's 24 members in parliament. Only 11 of them are on Twitter.
Yeah.
But there are big hitters, though, because when you start taking only those who are the numbers of those who are on Twitter, and you start splitting them up, average followers per ANC is 62,000. DA is 51,000, and EFF is 291,000.
That's incredible because they're the smallest of the three parties.
They are. And it's got to do with the fact that Julius Malema is actually the leading politician on Twitter right now.
I mean, they would have.
And then you bring in because actually the top three are Julius, Mbuyiseni, and Shibambu in that order. Yeah.
Fascinating. How then? I mean, would you know whether that was done during the Trump election, where they used political, influences to impact on votes?
I don't have evidence of it, but I would not be surprised if that was the case. What I found, though, with the 2016 municipal elections is that the EFF were using this strategy quite a bit with their top three. It wasn't the case with the ANC and the NDA, but it was certainly the case with the EFF.
How would you know? I mean, so the fact that they have big audiences is one thing. How would you know that they were using a strategy to get votes?
All that you needed to do is to look at what they are tweeting at specific times and what images they were using. And I was almost certain that you had one person who was tweeting on their behalf, because the messages were really very similar. In some cases, actually the same. And the images were the same. That alone told me that it was a coordinated approach on their part. It was not the case with the other guys. Why is it important that there has to be a coordination? You don't want a situation where the likes of unpacks are going to be saying stuff and then they get caught out. So you have to coordinate in some way, because it is also it then allows you to be able to measure the impact of what you're doing. Now, there are three things to measure with employed media, really. You measure reach, you measure sentiment, and you measure engagements. So if you have a situation where your officials and members are doing their own thing, it becomes very difficult to see whether what they're saying is related to the campaign, as it were, or not.
But here's the thought, and we'll wrap up with this here, that if it's done by, say, one person with three different personalities, do the personalities of those individuals come through? That means, does Julius Malema sound like Julius Malema that we know in real life, and when we see him on radio and TV, does he sound like that on Twitter? Or does he sound like somebody else?
It's actually interesting you say
Fikile
that.
Mbalula sounds the same.
Yeah, because he tweets himself.
Right.
Yeah. It's interesting you're saying that, but when it comes to political campaigns, the strategy tends to be informational as opposed to engaging, if you know what I mean, because you're putting out information about what people must do and where they must go and vote and all those sorts of things. So in that way, you have a bit of a license to be able to tweak here and tweak there without not being strictly on point with regards to their personalities. So you have a room to move.
Fascinating. We're gonna have to leave it at that, I'm afraid. But I think it's really interesting. I'm gonna ask you to tweet all those things and a whole lot more. Tweet to those individuals too. Let's see what they say about what their plans are. I'd love to check it out. Okay?
Certainly will. Thank you.
Willy Seyama, the founder of Initiate, and you can follow him on Twitter. Willy _Seyama, SEYAMA, and then the _initiators with an E, okay? So ENITIATERS. But also he'll tweet, so you can check him up on my timeline as well as on the SAFM radio timeline. Just now, #media show as per always. Tonya Kuri coming up after this.
104.4, the home of SAFM in Durban. SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader.